Hello, my name is Tylluan Penry. I'm a solitary pagan witch. I'm an author and the founder of the Wolf and Howl Press. Tonight's little talk is about what can we call ourselves? If we don't want to be called a witch, what do we call ourselves? The only problem with the name witch is that it has become a bit pejorative. In other words, people use it in a nasty way, you know. They call you an old witch, they call you a wicked witch. You see it on newspaper. Newspaper headlines are very fond of using it for any woman who seems unusually cruel or unkind or has done something horrible usually, and they'll use the word witch, which has absolutely nothing to do with the story in question. But this is why I do understand a number of people do not like the idea of being called a witch and refuse to call themselves a witch. But in that case, what do we call ourselves anyway then? I've never had a problem with calling myself a witch, but I don't feel I have to describe what I am to all and sundry. So I will sit here and I will talk to you, and I always introduce myself that I'm a solitary pagan witch. Fine. If I'm standing, I don't know, if I'm sitting at the doctor's then, and somebody says, "Oh, how are you today?" I'll just say, well, not very well because I'm at the doctor's. But I don't feel the need to say, and by the way, I'm a witch. It doesn't occur, Sometimes we've got to brace ourselves a little bit and say, well, people do not need to know everything about us. I don't expect people to declare their religious beliefs to me. Some people like to. I have known people who, the minute you start talking to them, they have to tell you how they go to church and they belong to this society and that and what have you. It's part of how they self-identify. But to me, it smacks a little bit of almost of desperation of saying, I'm not quite good enough as I am, but here you are, here's more information about me. And it's not really necessary. And in much the same way, we don't have to go telling people that we're a witch if we don't want to. Now that said, what else can we call ourselves? Well, some people like to be called a wise woman, a cunning man. Some people will say, well, I am on a nature-based path, which is rather nice. But again, to me, I don't honestly think it matters. I don't think we have to have a name. I think we just are. Here we are. And we don't need a name. I think people have got far too fond of having tags, of having labels, putting people in pigeonholes. There we are. There's a nice Catholic boy there. There's a good Protestant boy there. There's a member of the Freemasons there. Half the time we don't need to know. I mean, we don't have to be secretive about it. Some people are very secretive. Others aren't. The only reason I think witches have tended to be a bit secretive is because they get persecuted. I mean, you can't say the Freemasons ever got persecuted. Not to my knowledge, they haven't been. There's been no major sort of purges in the UK anyway against Freemasons, and yet they are very secretive. But witches, I mean, yes, we have been secretive because we have been the subject of persecution, and there's always a risk it will come back. These are intolerant times. So, yes, I mean, if you feel you want to call yourself something, well, I follow a nature-based path. You can call yourself a kind of druid if you want, but you have to be careful with some paths because they have a distinct progression. So, if you want to say you're a member of the Bards, Ovates and Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, well, yes, that's fine if you are. But you've got to be very careful that you're not claiming to be something you're not, in much the same way as with witchcraft. You don't claim to be a lineaged witch if you're not. Nothing wrong with being a solitary witch. I can tell you that now. But personally, I would try and do away with the need for a label. Let it go. When you buy something and you get it home, and one of the first things you do is take the price ticket off it. Because the price ticket defines it. The price ticket said, this is worth £1.50. but to you it might be priceless, and to somebody else it might be absolutely worthless. You have to be, I think you have to be brave enough to take the labels off. If you don't have a label on something, people have to work out for themselves what it is and what it's worth. You know yourself, if you go into, say, an antique shop, and sometimes the owner of the shop will put a label on and tell you, oh, it's, you know, it's a 19th century Staffordshire, and it's an image of XYZ, and here's the price tag for it. Well, that's all well and good, but if you had found that in a charity shop, you would have to make your own decision what it was. You'd have to say, is it genuine? I wonder what sort of date it is. I wonder what it's worth. What am I prepared to pay for it? You see, and it's very much like that with us. Take the labels off. Let people judge us on what we are, instead of what we think we are, or what they think we are. Just leave it be. Take the labels away and we might do better. And I hope it goes well for you, because I think the person who asked me this had some very serious concerns, and I think she, you know, it was very genuine. But I personally have had a good think about it, and I think we're going to be better off, you know, if we try and take the labels away. But that said, I'm still going to introduce myself as a solitary pagan witch, because I think people need to know where I'm coming from on this video, on these videos. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for listening. Goodbye.